Hi guys, I'm Dafni Prosalika, partner at Reborrn. I'm in Amsterdam. I just wrapped up the discussion with Rob, Global Head of Digital for Heineken, and I think you're gonna love this one. Okay, so one of the campaigns you launched this year is Fans Have More Friends.
Yes.
80% of people feel like through their fandom of something, they have met more people than they would have.
We let Martin Garrix with football, Virgil van Dijk at a music event, Max Verstappen play a role. That was the moment that the team working on that campaign, that they felt, okay, this might be raw diamond. And that's why we say social networking since 1873.
There is the combination of
art, science and courage. Within a company like Heineken, we don't have factories, we only have breweries.
Okay.
Because so that's the first. Freddie Heineken decided if he would tilt the ease a bit, it looks like people smiling. Change management is not a sprint but a marathon, and requires a lot of stamina and also a lot of continuous realignment.
Is there a campaign or a product you can share that didn't go as planned?
Effective marketing is...
Nice to see you, Rob.
Nice to have you here, Dafni.
Welcome to Marketing Factories.
Thank you.
I think we can cheer
Yes.
to our discussion. I keep loving having episodes with the beverage producers. In each episode, I'm trying a different thing.
Very good.
Tastes good. So I want to start by really congratulating you for this run that the team has had. I mean, you guys were, I think this year, awarded most creative brand in the world by the Work 100.
Yeah.
The pub, the agency created to serve Heineken in Publicis, awarded most creative agency in the world.
Indeed, indeed.
And in a, if I might say, challenging environment, you guys, the brand has been growing. Operating margins, I saw the last financial reports are growing. Thinking of the collab with Effie and all about marketing effectiveness, which is probably when marketing meets its business objectives, I think it's fair to say we can put the Heineken name next to effectiveness. So congrats.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and I think it is really, especially in a company like Heineken, it's also being seen as a huge team effort. It is a lot of marketers, people in trade marketing and sales, in a global team, in different local operating companies, together with our agency partners, because the brand Heineken has so many different places and moments where it interacts with consumers, and a way to build brands and the way to be creative can be in all those places. So I'm here standing on the shoulder of giants and as part of a very big team, but I'm glad to take the compliment on behalf of the whole team.
So for our listeners, I think we've caught you in a transitional stage. You're exiting a role and entering into a new challenge.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about both of those capacities? As my questions are going to cover a little bit of both.
Yeah. So we're here in Amsterdam at the Heineken head office. So Amsterdam, that's where the Heineken brand was born and raised, although it was also raised by the world, as we say. And here we do a lot of the global marketing and global brand building. So up until a couple of months ago, I was part of the global Heineken team, leading all digital for the brand worldwide, together with my team. That means partnering up with the innovation team, the communication team, the trade marketing team, but predominantly focusing on helping our brand and all the local marketing teams that grow and build our brand in digital media, digital advertising, digital content, how to use consumer data the best. And as part of our learning journey there and as part of some of our experiences, we also have seen how a company like Heineken also needs to transform and continuously transition itself. So therefore, we also started a couple of initiatives, and that has led to a bigger marketing transformation or commercial transformation program. And I've been fortunate enough to now lead that transformation program for the company.
I mean, it's an incredible feat that you guys have been awarded as most creative brand, but I think that this is not something completely new for the Heineken brand.
No.
I mean, I remember 2015, most creative brand in Cannes. you've been around for 17 years of the brand's history. If you look back in this time, like what are some things maybe that have been constant, or have maybe changed a lot in those 10 years? And what is the root of this success? How is this continuous creativity being born?
Yeah. Now, I think creativity also really needs to be part of the culture of a company. And in our case, it's also part of the entrepreneurial DNA of the company. I mean, at the end of the day, the Heineken Company is still a family-owned company. I mean, we are publicly listed, but family-owned. And I think that family of entrepreneurs has had a lot of generations with love of creativity, love of innovation, and really the craft of brand building with a longer term thinking in mind, and with a strategic partnership at a base often. So what we say within Heineken is that brand building and the typical magic of Heineken is combining art, science, and courage. And I think if you talk about creative effectiveness or the way you build brands in a ever-changing world with consumer needs changing and societal insights changing all the time, I think that's where the love of creativity and also the respect to understand that creativity is one of the main building blocks how to grow a brand has been part and parcel of our thinking and doing for a long time. This is one of the many reasons I love working for this company, because it also gives a bit more rigor, a bit more structure, but also really a passion and a love for the art of creativity, but also the science of creative effectiveness and combining it. So it has been around for many, many years, and I'm just fortunate enough to be part of that journey.
Can you give me a few anecdotal stories to just make this a little bit more tangible? So I'm sure you guys, so first of all, it's incredible that this company is still family owned after 150 years. Like no one can imagine a global brand still being family owned. Are there any stories inside the company of the founders or of the godfather, as you said, is Freddie, that showed how he was thinking of creativity?
Yeah, I think there are many anecdotes about a lot of the people that have been around in Heineken, and especially our founders and Freddie Heineken as our so to say godfather of the company. I think a bit of a well-known one that I can definitely say is not an urban myth. It's what we call the smiling ease. And that is, if you look at the word logo of the Heineken Company, somewhere I think in the 50s, Freddie Heineken decided if he would tilt the ease a bit, it looks like people smiling. And therefore, he changed the font in a very creative, inventive way. And now it's part of the word logo. So the 3 E's in
and it's also the tilt you do when you're drinking.
Indeed. So we call it the smiling ease of Heineken.
Okay.
And that's, I think, the part of an inventive way of using creativity with a bit of a wink of the eye, with a consumer understanding, but also with a certain conviction that continuously crafting and fine-tuning and thinking outside of the box can really help also to make a bit of a distinction between you as a brand versus the other brands.
So thinking of more recent campaigns, you mentioned that there is a combination of data, of creativity, so
art, science,
yes,
and courage.
Okay, can you show me how one of your latest favorite campaigns have done that?
So I think a very recent one, and maybe we can talk about the more bigger campaigns, but a very recent one is what we call Heineken Clinker. This literally was introduced last weekend at Coachella. And Heineken Clinker is almost a smart wristband that you can put around your bottle or a can or a cup of beer or a glass of beer. In this case, it really focused on music events, where by cheersing, you can connect with the other person, your Spotify account to the Spotify account of the other. Because often when you're at a festival and you both like that kind of music, then but you have a hard time then, okay, so how can we stay in contact? Or how, if you like this music, then I'm also interested to know a bit more about your other music favorites, your other favorite bands, etc. So it was really born out of the insight that Heineken is all about socializing, about making socializing a more qualitative, a more deeper, a more memorable activity, if you will, but also a thing where you can hero the role and the occasion of beer as a product in a social gathering, and making sure that people that share the same passion point or interest in a bit more innovative, in this case, tech-inspired way, have a way to connect with each other.
And I guess with a true consumer insight that people in festivals are actually interested in what people and similar like people are listening to.
Indeed, and then there's part of the insight work, part of the discovering and the data analysis of how to do that. That's science. Part of the technological build is science, but you also need to make it simple, appealing, easy to understand for people. You need to make it close to the brand, close to the product. So that's a bit of the art of it. And still you can have an art and science, but then you also need to have the guts to go for the glory. So there's also a bit of courage to say, okay, yes, we're going to meet those tight timelines. We're going to do it at Coachella. We're going to do it at the Heineken House. So I was not very heavily involved. So there's other people that can claim all the credits for this. And together with Heineken in the US and a team here at the head office, together with our agency partners and especially Le Pub, that has been developed. But I think it's a very nice combination of art, science, and courage.
Truly. Of the campaigns that you have been heavily involved in, maybe you can relate to the courage part. What was a campaign you held your breath and said, oh my God, maybe this will not work. This will be a catastrophe, but we're going to do it. And what was the outcome?
Yeah, so there's a thing that happened a couple of years ago, and that's based on the partnership we've already had with Formula One. And then we started a partnership with Max Verstappen, our Dutch hero, the Formula One world champion. And he immediately was the ambassador of Heineken 00 and of our When You Drive, Never Drink program. And in order to do that, we also have a commitment to the outside world to reach enough consumers and spend enough, let's say, marketing investment to bring that important societal responsibility message. So we made a dedicated campaign. But to have an athlete be the spokesperson of a beer brand in a social occasion, I mean, with the creativity, with the way we approached it, with the way we also found yet another consumer insight that in this case, people tend to behave a bit more confident if they know that they don't need to drive. So if they have one person that definitely will drive, and in this case, Max Verstappen, then they feel confident. So then was again a combination of art, science, and courage. I think it was also a combination of long-term thinking in the partnership with Formula One, in the partnership with Max Verstappen, in the partnership with our creative agency, but also in a long-term program that is around enjoying Heineken responsibly and us taking the leading edge in responsible consumption.
But why? What was the part that needed courage in that campaign?
There are a lot of people in and outside the company, and also I would say within the external entities that also need to approve all the alcohol advertising stuff. That would not like to see an active athlete in a beer advertised.
If I think of different campaigns and actually maybe products that have come out of your collaboration with Le Pub, they're actually very digital products or campaigns that drive you offline or lead to a completely offline engagement. Like, what is the nature? What is the root cause of this?
Like maybe it all starts with the brand positioning and the brand strategy. And Heineken has as a tagline social networking since 1873. So it's all about the in real life connecting. I mean, meeting people over a beer. Either those might be people that you've never met before, but with the same interest. It might be like-minded people that you meet every now and then. It might be your colleagues that you go and have a beer after work. The power of the real connection, the power of the in real life meeting is a thing that we really want to protect and preserve almost, if you will, because it's a bit of a paradox situation in modern day society that it's easier than ever to connect with others. But at the same time, more and more people state that they have less friends than before, or have less contact with their real friends than before, or feel more lonely than they were before. So a brand that has been around for more than 150 years, that's really about this socializing aspect, also can play around a bit with that friction of, is there a digital product, a tool, an invention, a service that almost with the wink of an eye says something, yes, we understand that digital, social, your mobile phone is not going away in your life and it's super useful and interesting in so many ways. But there are a lot of important moments in your life where you also should literally put it down. So one of the inventions we've brought forward, this one is from 2025, is called the Flipper, where there's your phone case would have an automatic flip, and it would after hearing the opening of a beer, it would flip your phone on its head so that the screen is upside down and you can't be disturbed while having a beer with one of your friends or a person you've just met.
Okay. That's quite cool. Sometimes you read these things and you think they're like gimmicks, but I'm sure it becomes a little bit viral when you launch this. The boring phone, was it? They came out at the same time?
No, the boring phone was a year before. So that we have had a whole series of these kind of inventions. Sometimes it was more in a service, sometimes it was in a tangible tool, sometimes it was in an experience. And yes, I would lie if I would say that there's nothing gimmicky about it. Of course, there is a bit of the playfulness, the cheekiness, the edginess that is also part of the Heineken tone of voice and Heineken personality. But it's not fake. We really made it. No. It was really there. Real people experienced it in real life. So then, and of course, then we show to a broader group of people that this is our message to the world. This is our message to the audience to say, as a brand that stands up for socializing, every now and then reconsider how, in this case, you would use your phone while being out with friends.
Now that's interesting. I mean, the reason I'm asking is because you see all of this, all of these campaigns that aim to drive you offline. Yes, okay, I understand. They link to the purpose of Heineken, which is all about social networking, etc. But they seem to tap into something that is really important for this new generation of consumers, which is they seem to value what we thought when the way that we grew up, maybe as millennials, like a more offline time, a more like touch grass kind of thing. And I would love for you to share your, I don't know if there's something to be said, but you seem to be on the very right track of understanding how to engage these consumers, whereas other legacy brands are really struggling.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's not an easy feat. Definitely for a brand that has been around for many years, then there's this continuous tension and continuous trade-off between consistency, being recognizable, but also to remain fresh, to be flexible and agile enough to infuse new societal trends or to infuse new consumer needs or to let's say go with the flow in that sense. And I think there is a risk as a brand that therefore you become a bit wobbly and you as we would say in Dutch, you blow with all winds. I would say that the big thing is that a sharp positioning, a very well-rooted brand strategy. We have within Heineken, we have our own, let's say, procedure and format for this, that you continuously try to almost interrogate yourself. Is it sharp? Is it true? Is it valid?
Can you talk to me about this procedure? Is it something you can share?
We call it the brand in a bottle.
Okay.
And that's more the visual representation, and it shows elements of consumer insights. It shows elements of the product and the brand truth and brand history, and that tension. Because if you want to always go with the flow of what a consumer wants, then you might be the jack of all trades, but you're the master of none.
Yeah.
If you are very stubborn and maybe too conservative in not wanting to adjust or be slightly flexible, then you might not be relevant anymore. And I think that the golden triangle of being relevant, being distinctive, and also being credible, that requires continuous investigation and also a lot of doing, a lot of acting, a lot of trying, a lot of putting things out and see what is the consumer perception, the consumer outtake. I think for the Heineken brand, under the leadership of very great marketeers over the last decades, that positioning has been sharpened and resharpened and reconsidered. And therefore, it's sometimes easier to see if there's a certain trend or a certain available technology or a certain, in the case of being a bit topical on social media, a certain meme or a certain event coming up. Then you can root your point of view as a brand based on your positioning, but still apply it to there. I mean, socializing, getting people together over a beer, in essence, is almost a category truth. It's a point of parity for a lot of beers. But being able to say, we understand how difficult it is to truly socialize. We also understand how with changes in society, where for you and me, this uncomfortable first couple of minutes in the bar where you didn't know a lot of people, and then we went through it and then found new people. If you're of a generation that is accustomed to getting everything with instant gratification, getting everything at the moment you want, then that slight inconvenience of meeting new people might not be the thing you really learn. And it's a bit of a skill you need to learn as a human being over the years. So I think that's a bit where a legacy company and brand like Heineken comes in and says, we'll give you tips and tricks, of course, with a bit of humor, with a bit of an edge. We're not here to tell you precisely what to do, but to make it a bit lighthearted, make it a bit easier, and maybe sometimes overcome some of the mental barriers for socializing. And I think that's rooted in our positioning. And that's why we say social networking since 1873. Because, I don't need to tell you that 100 years ago, there was no Facebook, so to say, or Instagram or whatever social platform. But people were still meeting with like-minded people at places and moments they preferred.
You hinted to a lot of experimentation in getting things right. Is there a campaign or a product you can share that didn't go as planned, but it was a something from which you learned, or something that turned out in that consumers didn't react as you were expecting?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think sometimes if you're a bit ahead of the curve, or sometimes if you do something that is not immediately easy to understand for a consumer, then it's a bit new. It's quite a while ago, but I can remember the first one or two of the campaigns we've had for Heineken 0.0 were a bit unexpected for the consumer. And then I think it's roughly 10, 12 years ago, maybe a bit longer, we landed on the concept of Heineken 0.0, Now You Can, which was a very much rooted insight in there are all kinds of places and moments and occasions where previously you couldn't consider beer to play a role, and now you can. And that gave way to a lot of creative ideas, again, with a bit of playfulness, with a bit of humor. And therefore, from a consumer point of view, the role of the product, the role of the brand, and for themselves in social settings was immediately clear. But before we got there as a global brand team, it took us journey. It took us a couple of stints, so to say, where it could be the script, it could be the execution, it could be the message there, but the conviction we had that and 0.0 as a product is a very good product, and it is a segment, a subcategory of our beer category that is here to stay and here to grow, and that is tapping into a consumer need that is ever growing. Led us also to believe that you need a bit of stamina to try 2 or 3 times, and then you win.
A lot of the most awarded campaigns or products have come out of, as I mentioned before, your collaboration with Le Pub. And I know that because I researched to prepare for this podcast. And I know it's a known fact that Le Pub was an agency created initially to serve Heineken. Can you a little bit talk about what was the logic and the need of why this came into fruition? And if you think that a lot of the things you have managed to do would not be possible if you didn't have this agency operating model?
I think Heineken as a company, not only for the Heineken brand, but for other brands as well, and not only within marketing, but in other functions as well. Also, in line with the mindset of a family-owned company, has always believed in long-term partnerships. Because in long-term partnerships, the understanding back and forth is much deeper. The discussions can be much more based in facing the brutal facts and in honest conversations that might not always be the most convenient at start. So Heineken Company and Heineken brand has been working with publicists for many years. Then when the global brand moved into a new era of maturity, because the brand has been growing for many, many years, we also saw that the brand was present in so many different markets with so many different stages of maturity in the brand life cycle that the one-size-fits-all model has a lot of benefits for a global brand, especially if you think about design and about distinctive brand assets. But in the activation and the deployment and the localization, we needed a partner that can be present in many different places in the world, but can be the custodian of the brand together with us, with a rooted knowledge in local creative approach, local insights, etc. So that's how the Le Pub model started, together with publicists in Milan and Amsterdam, then grew to other places in the world like Singapore and Sao Paulo, and now is in many more places where there's this continuous collaboration, and as in every healthy relationship, also every now and then good discussions and sometimes disagreements on, okay, what's the level of consistency? What's the level of standardization versus the level of customization, localization, one-offs? And this is really the model between Heineken and La Pub. And of course...
Who's pushing for the more standardization? Who's pushing for the more one-offs?
I think it sounds like a strategy consultant when I say it depends. But I think it depends a bit who you ask within Heineken or within La Pub, and what is the type of discussion. I think as a global brand team, if you need to enable and facilitate brand building and brand growth in so many different markets, a certain level of standardization and unification is needed. In the ways of working, in the process, in the way you come across to consumers. But I think we share a joint belief in trying new things, in being creative, in being innovative and inventive. But of course, there are creatives at a creative agency. When their creative juices start flowing, then they... can share more ideas than we can approve or disapprove, so to say.
Okay, so one of the campaigns you launched this year, actually, I think in Jan, is Fans Have More Friends.
Yes.
It's of the campaigns I studied preparing for this podcast, and not just because it's your last campaign. It is my personal favorite. There are many reasons for that. I think the main one being that it's based on actual research. There was an actual book and researchers a few years ago with the title of Fans Have More Friends, and they actually found out that staggering amount of people, like 80% of people feel like through their fandom of something they have met more people than they would have if they didn't have that fandom, that they have made some of their closest friends, that any experience is actually made better. So, and I mean, the other reason, so please, before I actually jump into it, talk to me a little bit about this campaign and the role that fandom plays for Heineken.
Yeah, it's actually an interesting procedure, so to say, that led us to this, because indeed, as you say, rooted in the insights of how fans of a certain passion point behave, we also saw out of all kind of research, and indeed also of published books, that people with the same interest have a tendency to meet strangers, people that they didn't know before, but that it is a very easy, let's say, entry point to start talking, start engaging, start sharing your experiences, your point of view, and therefore start to socialize. And that often passion points related to sports and music, the things you want to do, you like to do in your free time, are a very easy element in that, and also a deep and rich element. And I think what was funny is when the team started to share for the first time when we were developing this campaign, and this was the first time that we combined Formula One sponsorship, Champions League sponsorship, a lot of music sponsorships in one communication platform, as we call it. The campaign is part of a larger communication platform that you can also apply on events, etc. A thing that really immediately was a bit of anecdotal evidence that it worked is when we shared that in webinars to brand and marketing and media leads all around the globe. People started to share their own personal anecdotes of, yes, I was once in a hotel and I'm a rugby fan and I didn't know what to do, but then I asked the bartender if they could put the television on the rugby channel, and there was another hotel guest, and now we are friends. So people, our own colleagues, really started to share their personal stories, which showed that the insight really resonated. And I think that was the moment that the team working on that campaign, both from a sponsorship point of view and the communication and media team, that they felt, okay, this might be let's say, a raw diamond, and that we now need to shape into something brilliant.
I mean, from a personal perspective, definitely that resonates. I mean, doesn't show, but I'm a raver. So when I'm in raves and parties, it's just this smile that you make with a total stranger, and you feel like I'm here for you throughout the night, whatever you need. Or in a game, like I remember I had a Moroccan friend visit during the World Cup match with France, and she asked me to go to a pub with her in Athens, and we just went in, and it was full of Moroccans, and it's just felt not just home. It's but I mean, as a marketer, the reason I think it's brilliant is because every brand right now is talking about tapping into fandom, and many brands, apart from Heineken, are doing mega sponsorships, but it's very easy to get lost in the huge IP that is, for example, Champions League or Formula One, and be one of the brands. What you've done, guys, is brilliant, because you brought it where you are. You took the partnerships and the sponsorships and brought them outside of the IP, if you may, into true Heineken territory. And I think this is brilliant, and just the reach and augmentation.
And I think I'm happy to take the compliments on behalf of the team. And there are a lot of people that were involved within and outside of the company. So I'm glad to see that some of the strategic and maybe, let's say, creative thinking behind it was seen. I think what I really personally also like is the fact that the way for us to make it a bit ownable and to make it fresh at the same time is to take it into the domain of a social occasion. Not so much of an individual fan liking the individual, like one team or one player or one driver or one music artist, but more the social occasions of where Heineken beer as our brand and product has a natural fit, where it's also a bit the centerpiece of the drama, and as we would say, the social lubricant of bringing people together. But also then you can start to play in a bit of a creative way of, okay, what does that mean? So a personal thing that I find a very smart creative touch is that we have 3 brand ambassadors: Virgil van Dijk, a famous football player; Max Verstappen, famous, let's say, Formula One driver; and Martin Garrix, famous DJ. But we let Virgil van Dijk play a role in the scene that's about Formula One. Yes. We let Max Verstappen play a role football, Martin Garrix with football, etc. Virgil van Dijk at a music event. So we take a well-known celebrity that is part of one domain, one of an obvious sponsorship, and play, let's say, a human social character in another domain. And that gives, I think, that typical Heineken twist to it that I, as a brand marketer, really appreciate.
And maybe it's a kind of a remedy or a tip again to Gen Zs of how, guys, you can socialize and meet new friends. Because, I mean...
And which actually also can happen within the digital domain. I also think that... Therefore, we were talking previously about the Clinker, which is part of the Fans Have More Friends, but then more as a brand experience and as a digital, or let's say a tech innovation and invention. But I also think that a long-term brand platform that is Fans Have More Friends, you can also apply that in all kinds of digital domains where we maybe invite people that were... I'm thinking out loud, on Reddit, really engaged in something and say, hey, by the way, you might want to meet up in real life. Yes. Or we might do some sort of giveaway or some sort of tombola where people that really are active in engaging with people, with like-minded people, and make them meet in real life, so to say.
So if we steer a little bit into... the transition of your role. So is it, your tie with all of this successes for the Heineken brand makes me think that part of your transition into more horizontal role, at least for this the marketing transformation project for the whole company, has a lot to do with you leveraging a lot of the successes from the Heineken brand and bringing them to the entire company. Is that a good guess on my end?
Yeah, I think it's one of the, let's say, of the stepping stones. I was leading a team that we called the Consumer Connections team, and which really was about, let's say, digital, but it was where content, media, data was combined in the right places and moments and the right, let's say, message to connect with consumers. And a message can also be an experience or a service or a product, whatever. And by doing that on behalf of a lot of different markets and helping them with, okay, how to make sure that in the way we work together, from brief to plan to integrated plan to execution to evaluation, we really do it the right way. We also start to learn as a global Heineken brand, hey, this is not only applicable to the global Heineken brand, it can be also made applicable to the global Heineken company. So that was one of the ingredients that led into a larger transformation program. Another reason is that technology, and specifically AI, gives a lot of opportunities and also creates a bit of maybe anxiety for big companies like Heineken to consider how do we want to infuse that in the way we do business.
Now we're working exactly at the center of the marketing factory discussion. Can you walk me a little bit through this process that you just mentioned that you were running for the Heineken brand and now you want to bring on a company level, and how AI will be changing a lot of these maybe steps of the or stages of the factory, and things that are whatever you can share that is maybe already a thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think I can remember when you sent the first invitation for Marketing Factory. Yeah. There were 3 reasons why let's say I was frowning a bit. First of foremost, within a company like Heineken, we don't have factories; we only have breweries.
Okay.
Because so that's the first. The second one is that every now and then the factory, the word factory has, of course, a bit of this a bit boring, standardized thing. But of course, big breweries like Heineken work like factories, are a lot about standardization, unification, automation, also consistency in quality, but also to, let's say, to reassure our customers that we can always deliver on time, in full, and according to the quality specs. And a factory sometimes also has a bit of maybe an old school ring to it, at least in my mind. But I do think that there's a lot of elements to that really also resonate to the challenge and the journey ahead for a company like Heineken, is that standardization, that unification means that you can also leverage AI and data in the right way. If you know your process, you can also think, together with agency partners and together with internal experts, can we use agentic solutions to make that process smoother, make that process smarter, make that process faster? So that's really what we are continuously doing. On a heavily detailed level, almost breaking down the process of marketing communication from brand strategy all the way to activating in media, on the shop floor, in the bar, reporting and evaluating all the data signals that come back from it. And then thinking together with our partners, together with all the experts in marketing, in trade marketing and in sales, what can we do to let AI technology, and AI, of course, is fed a lot by the right quality data, leverage it in the right way with agents and other tools.
Can you give me a tangible example of a way of working, of a process that used to be somehow and now is different through AI?
I think that, for instance, the way that briefs used to be made, briefs for, it could be for a new local campaign for a local brand. It can be for a localized activation of a global brand campaign. Used to be manual work. Maybe there was a template, maybe there were some tips and tricks in a process, but it was a manual task where the right experts in brand, in trade marketing, in media needed to feed in. Somebody had to approve it and validate it, and then it would go out to whatever kind of partners, internal or external partners. Agents can help you to very quickly say, okay, these are the core elements, this information is missing. Hey, we've already taken some of the obvious pieces of information out of the data sources that we've unlocked. So a briefing agent or an audience planning agent or a media insights agent to leverage that in that part of a marketing communication process. It's not easy to make it high quality and structured from the start on, but it's also not rocket science to consider that this is a part that, like we say, from a good brief in 3 weeks to a good brief in 3 days.
Is there
maybe 3 hours?
Is there a part of the brief that's very human, that stayed human? Maybe a briefing process you have with Le Pub?
I think the generation of the brief as a document in itself can be highly automated, where almost the human in the loop is to validate the input that has been given. I think the briefing, the way you then build a story around the main problem to be solved, and the interaction of how you engage, for instance, an agency partner to really go the extra mile of that brand challenge. I think that is where it's really still the marketer as a human professional that is leading the dance. Another example, and I'm here paraphrasing, of course, a lot of the input I've been hearing in the last couple of years and last couple of months, but I think one of the things that really stuck with me is from Playbooks to Playgrounds. And as a global marketer, the amount of playbooks we've developed and distributed, where we try to share all the exceptions to the rule and all the ingredients and all the different use cases, so that we facilitate all the marketers that work on our fantastic brand around the world. Yeah, that was very static and usually a lot of information. And then, we...
And underused, I guess. I mean, people don't read.
Then we would say, okay, happy hunting. And then we would pray to the gods that they would leverage it. At the same time, keeping that updated. Yes, after a while, the playbooks got a bit more interactive, a bit more web-based, etc. But I think if you see that as codified knowledge that you can put into some sort of knowledge information management system, and then have agents or whatever kind of GPT advisory agent unlock that, then it is the marketer that doesn't need to browse manually through 142 pages of a PDF, but by prompting what is the local business problem or what is the type of solution people would like to get help on, then it generates the relevant outputs semi-automatically.
Is this a live thing right now?
It is on the verge of being live for a lot of people within Heineken, but with a lot of the agent and AI-based solutions, it's also a lot about testing and training. So we're in the...
but just the appetite to do that. I'm the author of 150 toolboxes for clients, and that no one reads. And okay, yes, we get paid that way, and I could be fine, but it just agitates me. So we've been pushing for a web-based and AI-based solution to all of this information for I don't know how long. So I mostly cheer to the courage of doing it. I mean, you're on, you have your enterprise solutions, etc. But still, you are on the edge of innovation, if I may.
Yeah, but
I don't know if you see yourself like that, but I can tell you are quite advanced for an FMCG in terms of going there.
I think the Heineken Company is not as far ahead as other companies are. I think what really helps us are three things. First of all, I think there's a huge curiosity and an appetite to learn about new things within the Heineken Company. It's part of our DNA. So I think in the last couple of months, we've been talking to a lot of smart people in a lot of companies that have done and tried things, either within agency partners or peer CPG companies, and have seen, okay, they've tried this, we tried other things. So that's one. The other thing is that sometimes it can be a slight advantage if you wait a bit and then technology opens up opportunities and then you can really leapfrog. So we can also learn from the scars that other people have done in this area. And I think we're now at an era of AI and agents that it's easier for people to see, because they've been using ChatGPT, Copilot, Claude, Gemini in their daily lives. So it's not a bunch of marketers at a head office to say, we in the ivory tower think you should do this. They really want it all around. And the third reason is that Heineken as a company is so broad in let's say so vast in the amount of operating companies with so many different distributors, different partners, that we always had to codify the way we work. And that used to be a disadvantage, because it used to be a thing where we needed to do a world tour and train people or webinars. But now, if you have codified a lot of the ways of how you want to do business, and you let an advisory agent unlock that, then all of a sudden it can be an advantage.
Even though I know that you're quite advanced, you say there are better companies than us.
I'm convinced there are a lot of better companies.
But that's always true. But not many people say that. How do you think the agency game is going to change with AI? And when I say agency, I mean consulting agency, creative agency, the relationship of a brand with its agency partners. How is this going to be? How is this already disrupted? But how do you see that?
I think it's a bit difficult to look into the crystal ball and really predict the future. I think that especially within the world of agencies, the fact that it has been quite consolidated over the last years means that they have become specialist powerhouses who also have developed their own tech stack, that have developed a lot of very smart, useful agents. So I think the way that agency partners and big advertisers or big brand companies work together is much more in an intense collaboration based on what we call a high performance organization, where you consider, okay, this is the way the process goes, this is the way roles and responsibilities are defined, this is the way that objectives are being shared and set, this is the way performance is being incentivized. So I think the traditional client agency relationship based on retainers with groups of people and hours, and we give a brief, you come back with a plan, I think will change over time, and it has already been massively changed for many companies and for many agency partners. But with every change, there's a bit of pain and there's a bit of gain. And I think, that time will tell, how those frictions also will resolve. I must say, I've been heavily impressed by the way all our agency partners have really leaned in and really have shown to us what they've learned, what they've experienced, what they have been deciding to do themselves. So I think, part of long-term partnerships is also that you are a bit vulnerable in sharing your own journey. So on that, to that effect, we are very happy with the partners we've invited to come and educate us.
My next question, which is related to that, stems from our own experience. So at Reborrn, being a boutique marketing transformation consultancy of just 65 people, yes, we work with global teams of the size of Heineken, but whenever we stepped into the door of IT or any discussion that had to do with technology, then it was like an automatic answer. Guys, let's not mess with that. Oh, this is we cannot prototype this. We cannot test that. We need to build it on the enterprise solution. Yeah, and everyone knows this is going to get 2 years. So we stopped trying after a thing. And I feel a huge shift in the appetite for any sort of experimentation and learning now with AI. We call it demo it, don't memo it. And it seems that it's picking up, and it makes me think that for you guys, it might signal also a kind of heightened sense of freedom, because the way that you also might have felt locked in a technological partner thing. And now this game is changing a lot with AI. I would love your opinion on that.
Yeah, I think, first of all, my observation is that we as marketers really like to have these kind of catchphrases, demo, not memo, playgrounds, not playbooks.
It was actually the CEO of Lovable that said that on Web Summit, and I got it. But I think it's a good...
so we marketers really like those easy catchphrases, but I think there's always a big truth in it. You say a heightened sense of freedom. I think it was not a sense of marketers in big companies like Heineken, or at least let me speak on behalf of myself and a group of people around me, is not so much not feeling free, but a bit restricted and less flexible. And decisions were made with a lot of care, and sometimes took quite a while because you knew that it had long-term implications. So I don't think the pendulum has swung all the way to the other hand. It's not like crazy experimentation for the sake of it. It is controlled experimentation that augments a certain base stack of technology based on a roadmap. I think the most important thing that it should be based on a vision and on a conviction. So you need to be very clear as a company and well aligned within the company. What do you want to own? What do you want to build? What do you want to buy or license? And I think especially on the license or the augmentation and the whole agentic or agent setup of it, I think that's where controlled experimentation is so much easier, because prototyping and demoing it is so much quicker at hand than it was 8 years ago. So there's a more flexibility, more freedom. Sometimes I think it's also, at least for myself, quite overwhelming. You constantly feel like you're running 2 steps behind. Yes. You constantly feel like you need to catch up. Yes. You constantly feel like you might have placed the wrong bet, so to say. So it's also a bit of, yet again, a balancing act between the daunting task of making the right decisions in a sea of opportunities, while at the same time that you know that there's there's shorter term moments to intervene if it doesn't go well. So that's the good thing of it.
So I saw in the last earnings call, I think it was CEO or CFO of Heineken, that let me see how exactly he phrased it. Faster, we need to push into faster innovation and sharper execution.
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine this cascades to your new role and in some way. I would love to understand how you see that and what are the main things you wish to achieve.
Yeah, I think that if we talk about innovation and execution, it's also innovation and execution in a bit more of a traditional way for the Heineken company. It can be innovation in packaging, in product. Yes. It can be execution on the shop floor, in retail, in bars, etc. I think it's more the fact that we recalibrated our company strategy. And then it is, so to say, pens down, and now we need to execute the strategy. That means that if there's a heavy ambition to do more innovation, consumer-facing innovation, not so much within the process of our company, but more the stuff we can get in people's hands, then that innovation needs to be fast and sharp. And then we execute with rigor, with pace, and you learn. You optimize and or you scale. Either you optimize if it doesn't go 100% according to plan. You scale if it's good enough, or you stop and you redo. And I think that's really the mindset that, the slight comfort people might feel in re-strategizing. That's done. So we need to now focus on making sure that where the rubber hits the road, that we are really focused in doing this in an excellent way and as fast and as decisive as possible.
What is the hardest part of your new role, you think?
I think the hardest part of my new role is that if in a lot of people's minds and in a lot of companies, that when you talk about marketing transformation, digital transformation, tech transformation, commercial transformation, people gravitate towards the substance, the functional elements of it, the tools, the processes, the way you set up the organization in a theoretical, formal way, while transformation is mostly about people, culture, the way people communicate, change management, stakeholder management. So it is much more of a people and culture transformation than a tech transformation. But change management is not a sprint, but a marathon, and requires a lot of stamina and also a lot of continuous realignment. And the Heineken company and a lot of other companies have this tendency to be focused on projects and quick from A to Z and on to the next, while this is a long-term program with continuous iterations. So that's the intellectually hard part of it. It's also the intellectually and professionally challenging and motivating part of it, because it really also taps into your experience as a marketer. You need to think of the end user, and the end user in this case is my colleagues all around the world that do marketing, trade marketing, sales, we help them in every bit that we can bring, from a new process to tools to partners, whatever, that we make their professional life a bit more easy and smooth, so they can focus on building brands and growing our business as fast and effective as possible.
What's the most, or top three, most effective change management tools out of your experience?
Okay, I have, out of my experience, which is, I must say, most probably quite limited versus a lot of people that have done this for the long.
We've been on the receiving or giving end of change management since the beginning of our careers, if you think of it. So indeed, you can maybe judge us on the receiving.
For the Heineken company, what I've seen really works is to create a community of people that really want to lean in. The people that say, okay, this is a new thing. Let me be part and be the ambassador or the advocate within my department or within my operating company. Let me be the eyes and ears on the ground. If people have questions or concerns, I'll get back to that. So that community of people that also share best practices or things that are not going well. So like almost a community within a company, I think that really works. Which is a bit of a nice segue into the second part, which for the company Heineken really works, is to create a healthy dose of FOMO. If other people are not part of the community, they feel a bit like, something interesting is brewing there. I need to be part of it. I want to know more. I want to learn more. And then the third part of it is to find the right balance in dosing the amount of communication, to not overwhelm them or bombard them with a daily newsletter, but also to not keep it a secret or keep it too limited in the scope and the scale of the people involved. So a healthy drumbeat. And in that sense, we come a bit back to maybe almost FE kind of media planning. It's about reach and frequency. It is basically old school media planning. You need to consider the depth of your audience and the core of your audience, but then also have the right level of reach and frequency to get that message across and to really let it land. In a way, versus the difference is then here we have an audience that, of course, wants to and needs to talk back, needs to interact, needs to be able to actively participate in a Q&A, because then, we make it better together.
So your KPI for this new tool that's going to replace the toolboxes is going to be?
Yeah, so first of all, I never call it a tool because it's a transformation that is so broad, but it...
No, I mean the from playbook to playground example.
That would be, in that kind of, in that sense, it's almost like going back to the starting point for a lot of the social platforms. It is weekly active users. Because then, that's, I think, the best metric to see if adoption is healthy.
And maybe in the cohort of senior leadership as well.
Of course, they are in, I think that the Snap and Pinterest and Instagram, etc., at that point in time, we're also considering, okay, do we have the right tastemakers and the right segments of our audience, of our society doing it? And so, yes, we have certain people within the company that we would be extra glad if they are active users. But the good thing is that it needs to work for everyone that interacts with our customers and consumers. So that's everyone that has a commercial role.
So I love the segue you did into FEs. And I know that you've sat on the grand jury of FE Europe more than once. What is effective marketing for you?
I think effective marketing, I mean, the textbook elements of it is not that hard, but effective marketing is, I think, really understanding the problem you would like to solve, therefore establishing very clear, traditionally very smart objectives, and then making sure that the way in this case, a consumer insight is translated into a creative concept, keeps on being true to those design principles of, okay, this is the problem I want to solve. This is the objective I set for myself. So I think in all the big discussions we've had as grand juries all over all those years, so to say, I think where there's such rigorous amount of logic in how people that worked on a very big campaign or a very large multi-year brand initiative, that there's consistency in the logic, and that the execution of a creative idea was totally in line with the brand or business problem that they want to solve, and the objective that they've set was done so smart that at the end of the journey they could hold themselves accountable. Have we met that? While there's also a lot of case submissions that are emotionally or creatively really grabbing you by the throat, so to say. But then you look back and they say, okay, it was impressive, but it might not have been effective.
So for my last question, which is the signature closing of every one of our episodes, I'm going to ask you the following. So at Reborn, we have a proprietary sprint-based methodology, if you may. It's called the 58. It takes its name from the first sprint that was Monday at 9 and finished at Wednesday at 6. So I don't have 58 hours with you more, as much as I'd wished. But if you had 58 hours with the most brilliant people in a room, agency, brand, other experts, you name it, to solve a mission-critical Heineken challenge that you think would really propel the brand forward, the business forward, now that you're on a company level, what would that be?
Okay, that's a good question, and this shows that I have a tendency to not read all the info that is being shared with me up front, which is good because it stays a bit natural. I think, and I would be curious if we could solve it with all the bright minds in a room in 58 hours, but I think the big challenge nowadays for brands is the plethora of touch points you have as a brand and how you can be recognizable and consistent on the one hand and fit for that specific touch point on the other. So we call this the brand world. All the places and moments, from a bottle to here to a beer mat to a draft, but also packaging, digital design. So if I have 58 hours with all the bright minds that can work for and on the Heineken brand, I would really go in depth as a group with designers and strategists and creatives and digital and media and trade experts, etc., on how can we find that optimum balance between recognizable and consistent, and also being flexible enough to be really on par with that what TikTok is, or on par with that what a dance festival where you as a raver are. So that it's that golden middle ground, so to say. I think that is one of the biggest challenge for big global brands. There are a couple of brands, I won't mention names, there are a couple of brands that I think have nailed it quite well. Okay. So I would use that as an inspiration session. And I know that there are a lot of colleagues of mine that have already been looking into this, but I'm too curious as a marketer to not participate. Now I'm in my new role, I'm not really participating in this, so that would be the subject of my 58 hours.
Okay, but now you gave me the freedom to ask a second 58 because you said for your new role. So if it was a marketing transformation challenge in your new role, what would you want to solve from what you see so far?
I would, the 58 hours I would spend on a detailed roadmap for the full learning and development journey of all my colleagues around the world. So how would we best engage with them to upskill them to be marketers, trade marketers, and salespeople that are 100% fit for the future?
Okay, love it. Thank you so much, Rob. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you for joining here in Heineken office. Cheers.
Cheers.